Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck here, covering you the case update on the 16th of June here, Monday night. Made it back to San Antonio, and it's been a long, rough 24 hours. Didn't really sleep at all. Probably I was lucky if I slept an hour last night. Just angry about this case and just the way that this whole court process has just been such a joke and disrespectful of what we normally see of a criminal court proceeding in the United States. It's just a completely foreign thing to me to see this up there in Denham, Massachusetts. And I was thinking again about the history of Norfolk County, where this trial is being conducted. And it was, they call it the County of Presidents because 4 U.S. presidents were born there. So the first was John Adams. He was one of the founding fathers. And we had John Quincy Adams. And then JFK, John F. Kennedy, was born in Norfolk County. And then we also have George Herbert Walker Bush, the 41st president. And so we have Paul Revere also was born and raised there. Paul Revere is famous from the Revolutionary War against the Brits and warning about the British were coming. That's what he's famous for, shouting out the British are coming, the British are coming. And so you have all this rich history of the founding of America there, and then we have this absolute joke of a process up there. And then when you see that it's more of a persecution than an actual prosecution, and the duties to treat defendants with a fair trial. It's not about how much you can keep out, and just so much a dereliction of duty of so many people up there from the first time this thing happened. And to think about it, this happened to a law enforcement officer who was murdered, and we still can't even get him treated with dignity and respect in the way this whole process is being rolled out. And so we had Friday, we had a shortened day. It was abruptly canceled for jury deliberations. We were told they're going to go till 5:30 ish, and they're stopped well short of that. And then today they start, late. There's not an 8 o'clock morning ever that we've seen in this trial, and they're gone before 4 o'clock again. So it's just they've never had a full day. They've never had a full day of trial in over 7 weeks. And now even during jury deliberations, it's like there's no sense of urgency here to get your job done, get your mission done. So I was predicting that this would be, slam dunk. They'd come back and in the first 5 or 6 hours. So because they didn't have a full day Friday, that rolled over to here on Monday. And then Monday we get closed up early, but they still haven't came back with any questions or any verdict. And so I'm just trying to think through the psychology of this thing and what are these people about, and what could they be processing. And so are they having divisions now? Have the divisions formed, or are they just wanting to go methodically through the evidence first? So we don't know the structure of how this thing went. So it's too soon. I can tell you there's probably not a lot of leaders on this jury, because a lot of leaders would want to just steer it to like, hey, we need to highlight these points. Is there really much to discuss because the government's not met their standard? It's clearly a case where they should come back not guilty across the board. But if there's some folks there that they have trouble getting across, and they're thinking, well, and they're coming up with some weird reasons for not wanting to convict, or wanting to convict, I should say, that the ones that are pro defense on this case, they're going to be digging their heels, and they're not going to be moving and being easily flipped. So that's one good thing I think about Karen's case, is that there's going to be some on the jury that are absolutely, if they weren't like Team Karen before, after seeing this goat rodeo of chaos and obstruction and injustice from day one. I think they're going to be digging their heels and they're going like, we're not budging. It's not guilty. We're not going to leave, and we're not going to change our mind. And they're going to be working to change the mind of any jurors who are thinking that the government's proven their case. I think aside from any of the just miserable witnesses that prosecution propped up to try to establish their elements, and I'm not talking about obviously about the medical examiner, Dr. Sorty Bell, because she was called by the prosecution, but she did great for the defense. But if you look at what they tried to establish through their own witnesses that they called, other than that doctor or the medical examiner, I mean, they just never had a good day. And so when you consider all that, and then you think that they would need more than 9 hours to deliberate, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, like I say, if they want to do the method of reviewing all the evidence and then sort of discussing it as you go along, if that's the format that they have, then I don't think we need to like panic at this point at all. If they don't have something by tomorrow, then I would say there's got to be there's a better sign there's going to be some division, and then so tomorrow's Tuesday, Wednesday. If they still Wednesday, we'll probably have a question by then if they're having some kind of disagreement. But I don't think I can come back Wednesday and say we're at impasse. And then keep in mind Thursday is Juneteenth, a federal holiday here. That was a new federal holiday established a couple years ago, several years ago, and so the federal courts are and all federal offices are closed for that, and most state courts follow that as well. So I don't think they're going to have court on Thursday. So I'm thinking if they don't wrap this up by Wednesday, they're going to be bouncing it to Friday, and then at no point do they have a full day here. So I'm just disappointed that this case is not being moved forward. Like the jurors are not going to be held to a full 5 or 5:30 every day to let them know it's like, look, you're not going to be coming in here just carefree and not putting your nose to the grindstone and really trying to get some progress done. So anyway, I'm not worried about a conviction on anything unless it's for the DUI as a horse trading kind of thing. Then I think that I think we're going to be looking at. I think we should be looking at every day. I'm thinking there should be a verdict here. So, but probably good thing is that we don't have any questions as of yet. So this means they're still going through the evidence and they're not doing any arm twisting or flipping tables in there. Yes, I agree. Maya, the lawyer, you think Brennan and Canody are both happy with the hung jury? They just don't want an acquittal. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Obviously, they want a conviction, but I think they realize that this case is not winnable. Yeah, so I yeah, so I'm just not happy with this thing dragging out. That you can't go a full 8 to 5, 5:30 every day with this jury just to make sure Karen's not having to be dragged through this anymore. But they don't care. They like it. The Commonwealth has massive hatred against Karen Reed. So the more she can agonize through this thing, the more the glee they have. And that's really a sick process. Carly, you're asking if I've ever seen a judge pick a foreperson where the alternates were picked, so the juror gets the one juror they want. I've never seen that before. And the thing is that something that's an appellate point? I think it goes to show bias on the part of this judge. I'll just keep raising bias and use that as another indicator. So I'd probably be filing a motion for recusal every day, adding to the previous day's motion, just incorporate by reference everything she's done in 32 days. Is keep a running, have somebody just that basically that's all they do all day is raise other points of appellate error. in terms of bias and what adverse rulings a judge made that they're basically a violation of due process. Because this is blatant. This is the worst you'll ever find it. So if you have any questions here, I'll go ahead and take your questions. I've been so much late night streaming and stuff like that, and so a lot of times I'm trying to get through the testimony, and so I don't get as many questions answered as I normally do. So you guys have any questions about deliberations or anything about the trial? Amy Daniels, if it's a hung jury, do I think they'll go for round 3? I think with Morrissey he will, but keep in mind he's up for election. The election is this coming next November of 26, and so I think he's gonna waste more money. I mean, what are they gonna do? Hire Brennan to go after her a second time, wasting more money? I would think there'd be some pressure from the top, but this state doesn't have really much common sense in the way they handle a lot of stuff. Just spending the taxpayers' money just is no issue. Just completely wasting it on a case that they cannot produce. So if there's a hung jury the second go around, you can't get a hung jury, and we know that the first jury, not a single one of them thought the government had proved second-degree murder. And what do? They go after her a second time on that. It's very vindictive. Yeah, Mojave Ghost. You're also asking about whether they'll go for a third trial if there's a hung jury. And would I don't think this judge though would be the judge in the next case. I think that she held on. I was told she was supposed to be rotating to a civil court, not doing criminal cases anymore, but she wanted to keep this one on the retrial. And we saw today that the judge denied the defense motion to have better clarity on the jury instructions. And of course, she denied that. We knew she would deny that. It is confusing if they don't really understand the process of lesser included offenses. As I mentioned the other night, the instruction did not say to just pick one of the 1 through 5 options on the second count, the manslaughter one that includes all the way down lesser included of DUI. So, but confusion is good. It helps create a mistrial, just like we had the last time. The jury was confused. They didn't understand how they're supposed to work through those verdict forms. Adriana, can you explain the role of what the foreperson has and how they're different from the rest of the jury? Basically, they're just the point of contact for the judge to address the jury rather than have 12 people up there all firing away different questions. The foreperson is supposed to go and be the spokesperson for the jurors, but they're not supposed to be a gatekeeper of questions. So as we saw in the first trial, that former cop of 4.5, 5 years as a patrol officer, he basically hijacks the whole process. He would not let them ask questions. He was the one telling them the law, how it works. And it was a complete disaster. He had no business doing that. He completely went outside the scope of his role. So the foreperson is not a leader of the pack of the 12. They're just, like I say, they're just supposed to be the person that they convey information to. And then they funnel it back to the judge. And then when the judge has questions of the jury, that's the person that answers the questions on behalf of the jury. So that's what's so irritating is the fact that if you get somebody up there that's a total control freak and they want to have they're doing their darndest to control the outcome of the case, then they'll just be able to hijack the whole process. So I've never seen that before. And so I'm just I don't know how the defense left a cop on there. Maybe it was one of the last ones they ran out of preemptory challenges, and the judge made sure that even though he should not have been on there, when you got a case where the first words out of the defense counsel are, "My client was framed," like Yannetti did in the first trial, and you have a cop on the jury, that's not a good thing to have. There is basically a cop listening to the defense saying, "The cops you see here on this case framed Karen Reed." So it's just a battle you're not going to win for the most part. If he was a cop that fought corruption and left the force because of that, then maybe he would be a good one. But I just would never want to see a cop, a former cop on a jury of any kind. CC, what do you think of the jury instructions today? Terrible. That was the problem last time. Yeah, it's not clear. It needs to be clear. Hopefully they'll ask questions if they have confusions on it. Hopefully they'll just write number one, not guilt, check the not guilty for part one and not go on to the other sections. But it is sort of bizarre. You have just one not guilty check of all those other options. All those other options are guilty. Let's pull that up here a second. So this one here is pretty simple to see. I think it'd be helpful if they reminded the jurors of the elements of what second-degree murder is after listening the title, not having the elements there handily to be able to read. Then the jury has to go back to the written instructions. And this also is very weak. We, the jury, say that the defendant is. We, the jury, we, the jury, by unanimous decision of all 12 members, find that the government has met its burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt, and the defendant is accordingly found, and have it one or the two, either not, they've proven it or they haven't proven it, and then you have the not guilty. Always, you want to have the not guilty, the most favorable to the defendant first, and then otherwise you have the other option, guilty of the offense charged second degree. So having it down here, unanimous decision, that's a four-person signing. Most states and jurisdictions only have the four-person sign, which I think is wrong. It puts too much power in their hands. I think all 12 should sign. I've seen that before where defense counsel have asked for all 12 to be signed, have their signature on it rather than just a four-person. All right, then we have here, this is a real nutty one that's really complex. So look here, you got in block section 1 here, not guilty. That's the only time you see not guilty. Then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you got 1 not guilty and then 10 are guilty. And so it just has the optics of suggesting that something's got to be, you got to find something guilty. If you got 10 options of guilt, obviously she's violated all these committed all these crimes. And so if they had it up here where it's after they mentioned the offense, manslaughter while operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor, if they had like the elements of that crime up above there and then had the same intro, we, the jury, by unanimous decision, blah, 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 and then have it that way. Otherwise, what they don't clarify is that they should only, if it's not going to be not guilty of the charge for item 1, there's nothing in here that says that they don't have the option of checking 2, 3, 4, and 5. Does the jury understand that? If they go to 2 and they think, "Well, that meets the elements of that, yeah, let's check that." We can check the 2 sub-checks as well. Now we can go down to lesser included, involuntary manslaughter. So it can just be highly suggestive and do some psychological manipulation there of the jury members by having it this way. Again, we just have one signature. The last one is very simple and clean, but like I say, that should be structured differently. They should put the elements of it up there as well. We know the jury got confused the last time, and so this could be confusion again. So there's a good chance they're going to have some questions on the verdict slip, especially this for count 2. That thing is like a maze. Kim Sanderson, you said you were a jury, had each your own individual form that we completed and signed and dated. Yeah, where was that at? Was that in the United States? Yeah, beach bum. Sign make everyone sign not guilty and then write not guilty all over the other sheets and those 2. Yeah, I would have liked to see them come back within a couple hours and really send a message to the government, "You really messed up bringing this case to us, having that absolute disaster, lack of investigation, rush to judgment, and actual cover up." This whole trial was a cover up as well. TNS, yeah, if they come back with anything other than not guilty for these other counts, you've lost faith in the justice system completely. I've already lost faith in the court system there. The jury's the last op they're the last line of defense, as we heard from Alan Jackson, and that's totally accurate. Yeah, Leslie B. How can the verdict form have one choice for not guilty and 7 options for guilty? It just looks weird, and it's leads to the suggestion that there's gotta be something you can find the defendant guilty of. Okay. Glenn, you think the jury's divided because of a not guilty? It's so obvious that they would have concluded deliberations today. That is the most likely scenario, but we don't know for sure. They could just be slowly going through the evidence. There's, after all, a lot of things to go over, a lot of things to review. CC, you're saying you like to see me take on the judge and prosecution. Were you telling him while I was watching? Did you want me in the courtroom? Yes and no. I mean, when you have a judge that's this one-sided and uneven-handed on her rulings, it makes you really mad, want to be there. And the other side of it is just sort of like the having to fight through this and the mental strain it puts you on you. I would rise to the challenge, but it is taxing on your body, your mind, and like I say, something like this, if I would have faced it, I would just constantly every day been raising the motion to recuse and add all the more bias rulings of the judge that has to be heard and everything that being a sidebar so we the public can't see what's going on. When the jury's not there, they should not be having sidebars. It should be an open court. Mad 962, aside from the verdict form, what do you think the jury might get stuck on if they do? I don't think they're gonna get stuck on anything. They shouldn't, because if they don't get this and they can't understand what corruption looks like, and they don't understand beyond reasonable doubt, it's really a scary day up there in Massachusetts. Adriana, you're asking if the jury received all the prosecutor's texts or only the ones read in court. I think just the ones read in court. That's the way it normally works. Everything's filtered, censored, reduced down. Yeah, there's definitely an agenda going on there. It's not about justice. Okay, let's see here. We got Piggy Doo. I don't think the defense anticipated this much corruption. I don't know how they couldn't. If you notice, though, they were a lot more aggressive this time around than the last. Just for the way Brennan treated witnesses, I'd be like, let's get the verdict out of here back in open court as soon as we can. We need to send a strong message. We will not allow witnesses to be demeaned and abused like they were by this prosecutor. Yes, Cleopatra, there is an option for DUI. Adrian, it doesn't seem like just if the jury's not getting a full picture. Think about how much the judge kept out from evidence, including I saw somebody saying there was an interview with retired FBI agent Easter. That was really impressive. Yeah, the defense never got to show that. Ingrid, after all this time and money spent, she's going to end up with a simple DUI. Don't say that. We don't know yet. I don't. I would think the jury would not go with a DUI charge just based on the outrageous government conduct. So you see, the judge wants her found guilty, or at least it appears that way. Yeah, I think the jury picks up on that as well, and that's why her bias is abundantly clear. Jury should be able to pick up on that. A little misread. What do I be saying to Karen right now? Assuming us her attorney, well, I think they're just trying to they were working on that motion to clarify the jury instruction, and the judge summarily denied it. So he just got to basically sit back and wait and pray to God the thing works out good. Because you're fighting a lot of corruption, a lot of corruption. Michael L., if when you have to assume Karen was drunk, isn't that reasonable doubt from the get-go? There has to be evidence there, solid evidence. So I think the best evidence they have is Karen saying something along the lines of she wasn't driving, she didn't feel like she was in a condition to drive on the highway, but she was okay driving the smaller street. So that shows some level of impairment. But they may do that even though the evidence is not strong on that DUI charge, they could use that as something to broker an agreement between those that want her get her convicted of something and those that say no, she shouldn't be convicted of anything. So just avoid another hung jury, having a lower charge like that. I think is a good move for the defense to ask for that. Steve Hall, you keep thinking about how Larry F., the DUI guy, said he knew all kinds of things he couldn't share after meeting with defense. I keep thinking about the Fed still involved. What else could it be? I think that's a possibility. I would hope so. And JJ, I do think the Feds are definitely watching this. I don't know what they would find in terms of rigging things, railroading people with prosecutions and whatnot. You know, one of the things I heard one of the jurors was wearing gym shorts to deliberate. That's concerning to me. It just indicates maybe they don't take this seriously. If you have a life sentence on the line, would you want somebody showing up in gym shorts to decide your fate? I understand we're more of a casual culture than we used to be, shoot 100 years ago, unless people wore suits to court. Just to observe it, you'd wear a suit and a fancy dress. So society's changed. With a court like this, how do you respect a court like this? Plant Enchantress, you also heard they're gonna be out Friday, is that true? Well, hey, if they're off on a Thursday, then that why not take off Friday as well? There's no rush to get a verdict on this case. Not at all. So, yeah, they're probably gonna be off another 4-day weekend. So, whoever wants to can go out to the Cape. Sandy is asking about whether I think this extrapolation test is proof beyond reasonable doubt that she was drunk driving. Well, I've said this the last couple nights that if you extrapolate that, and if you're saying to say she has 2 to 3 times the legal limit, there's no way she stopped drinking at 12:30 because that those drinks are eliminated from her body close to 1 drink per hour. So when she got the blood draw at 9 o'clock in the morning, she would have had no alcohol in her if she really stopped drinking at 12:30. It would have been eliminated from her body several hours beforehand. So I think the test is not reliable. It shouldn't have been admitted by the court. I don't know the process where they said it was admitted. Was it the police doing a probable cause request to? I don't think they got a judge involved for doing a blood draw, and so I think that they probably just did the test as a matter of intake for Karen, and then the law enforcement subpoenaed it, went from there. But it's not even like accredited, or they don't have any standards of testing there. So highly inflammatory to have that kind of unreliable testing come in. Christine Hawkins, you're saying the fact that Higgins didn't text back after you said John is dead was a point that stuck with me. Who doesn't text back when you say your friend is dead? Yeah, I mean, you could also say that, well, he didn't text her back because she ignored him at the bar, but that can be interpreted in a couple different ways. And you see if she's found guilty, is there a reason to have it overturned on appeal? Absolutely. This thing will never survive an appeal. It'll be overturned. Yeah, I've never got to sit on a jury. My brother John has sat on 3 criminal trials. I know Food is Love has been a grand jury member as well as a jury member on a recent felony case in Texas. So if you have anything to add on from your experience there, I know they came back with a really quick verdict to send a message on a case she was on. And I'm in messages with John today. He was saying, look, same thing happened. You got several holdouts for a while, and you just got to basically keep at them and point out how all their views are wrong, and then eventually they'll give it up. Yeah, Nancy, you're saying everyone should just be patient, let jurors go through the evidence, and they've had a lot of evidence thrown out. Yes, they have. So maybe they just want to take their job methodical that way, and we're just thinking, hey, we know what to do. We don't need any time to look over evidence. Tina S., you've been on many trials deliberating. There's always a know-it-all who goes against the grain. Okay, a little misread. Velvet, they have a dress code here in the UK for court. There'd be no gym shorts. Yeah, certain barrister courts, they still wear the wigs. Linda Hansen, Redamonte, are the jurors bribed? Anything's possible. I'm not going to say that they must be bribed. And that's why they haven't come back with a verdict yet. GM, GBMFO, they've only been out 7 hours, still confident, not guilty, times 3. Yeah, it's been a little over 9, but that can be a fair assessment. Tina S., you're saying evidence that was based on a corrupt investigation shouldn't even be considered. Courtney Marie, that Boulder example was ridiculous, and I tried to make sense of it and still ended up irrelevant. Yeah, Brennan talking about a boulder, somebody throwing a boulder off of a bridge. That's really out there. Not a correlation to what Karen's charged with at all. GMS. Never mind was on a jury. 11 agreed. 12 wanted to see more evidence. The court carried in like 12 boxes, put the boxes down and said, have at it. Yeah. I mean, maybe they're all talking about the different Brennan stories about how he is treating different witnesses, and maybe a lot of us is venting and not really that much evidence discussion. Yeah, Tia M, you're asking if they come back with a hung jury, can the defense ask they indicate which charges they were not hung on? Well, I think they're not going to go through that this next go round. Where if they, for example, I don't expect them to convict Kieran at all on the first charge, second degree murder. So that one, I think the judge will ask them, "Why do you have a unanimous verdict on that one?" If they're hung up on count 2 or 3. So I don't think we'll have an issue where they at least don't resolve the second degree murder. I think that'll be uniformly not guilty. Piggy, will they be allowed to discuss how awful Hank behaved? Yeah, they can talk about that. I would hope they talk about that. How could the jury not be offended at the prosecution's behavior in this? And also the judges. Captain Be Obvious. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but you're saying I thought the cell phone temp was damning evidence. But other than that, I don't see a reason to charge her in the first place. I mean, talk about computers, and Brandon's trying to say how accurate computers are and stuff like that. I mean, we just had a fracas this morning because when we're trying to go through the airport in New York City to get back here, we Les and I both have the TSA pre-check, right? And so we both have outbound flights to go to New York City with the pre-check on there. And then on the return flights, so for some reason hers was not on there. So why would you have it on a round trip ticket purchased a couple months ago? Why would you not have the pre-check on her ticket? So to get through security, well, first of all, it wouldn't, when you try going through and getting a printout ticket at the counter, at the one of those kiosks, wouldn't work. The guys working there said, "Oh, you got to go to the counter." Then there's a long line at the counter. You go to the counter, and there's a big headache with that. And they couldn't find her. They said there's no pre-check number, and we gave them the number. This is the pre-check number. And they said, "Well, we don't have that number in our system." It's like, how does that disappear from your system? They didn't even have her Sky Miles number. So all this is computer glitches, right? And then, so finally we're able to get through. So she does not going to get TSA stamp on her ticket. So she has to go through regular security, which is much longer. And in any event, when she's going through there, guess what they say? They say, you're using your name on your ticket doesn't match the name on your ID." And yet it did, but yet they're saying they're going by her maiden name. And so if it wasn't for Leslie having an old ID card with the maiden name, she wouldn't have gotten through security at TSA there. So TSA was sitting there saying, you need to give us a maiden name driver's license, even though your ticket has Steinbeck as your last name. and all of her IDs, otherwise current IDs, say it's Steinbeck. So anyway, it just goes to show you that the government computer system's all screwed up this morning for us. The Delta one was all messed up as well. And that's the kind of evidence, that we can rely upon when it's not even forensically supposed to be used, this black box card data and the phone data. So I just don't believe any of that. You should never have somebody's life depending on whether that's reliable or not. See how you said someone on YouTube said the boulder was a good example? Yeah, I mean, there's just people out there, they'll do anything to try to bring Karen down. If I thought there was evidence to convict Karen Reed, I would say so. I didn't go in this with a preconceived notion that, hey, I'm going to take her side, and because more people are up in arms about her innocence than there are about her guilt. But there's a lot of nasty stuff out there with people that think the Commonwealth hasn't proven their case. Or we're basically bullied, right? Mean, nasty comments made. Larry Hudson, you say, I really think the clips of Karen Hertz is easy for a juror who just voted on a motion to hold up everything. Well, that's what the other jurors are going to do, is walk them through and say, look, these clips, we didn't hear all the rest of the clips of what she said. And the context, we don't know the context. They made them so short. Lulu 22, hey, Kyle Rittenhouse case, they delivered 27 hours and came back not guilty. I didn't realize it was that long, but that's a good point to make. See how I'd be immovable on a jury? So would I. Nor trial number one, jury deliberated 72 hours. So your separated says these jurors have been watching this corruption for weeks and they finally get to talk about it. I believe it'll be not guilty. I still got to believe that they're not going to miss this obvious slam dunk win for the defense. Utter lack of proof. Think about the experts that came in and testified this was not in any way, shape, or form a vehicle strike on John O'Keefe. Okay, so the composition of the 12 is 7 women and 5 men. Castle Jones just got back from my son's graduation ceremony. There was a few in shorts and flip flops, even though the invite said formal attire. Juicing recipes, you think there's a lot of reasonable doubt around the OWI? I just think as a matter of principle, it should be not guilty. Even if the jury thinks, hey, yeah, maybe we got something there to go on, but the way she's been treated and the vile, abusive treatment she received, especially from Proctor, you should not win a case with this cesspool of behavior. Sandy, when the public started going to Walmart in their pajamas, he knew society was in a downhill spiral. Catherine Leeser, why does the judge pick the foreman? As I understand it, it's jury number one is always the foreman in Massachusetts. So in that sense, the judge doesn't pick the foreperson. But here, what we had, the judge moved people around so that she did get to decide who was going to be the foreperson in the number one chair. Yeah, let's see how long they go tomorrow. If they're still not with a verdict, are they going to go till 5? They've never gone to 5 o'clock a single day that I recall. It's always around 4 o'clock. They got to rush on out of there. All right. GB, you're saying the defense picked that juror at the beginning. Well, in a jury trial, it's not a matter who you pick, it's who you strike. So in that sense, you do pick them, but you're really looking at who to remove. And the way the judge does this jury selection, where she's very tightly controlling them, you're doing one at a time. You don't know how bad they're going to get, so it's really tough to decide who you're going to use your peremptory challenge on. Your peremptory is one you don't need to have a basis to challenge them. You'll have like 6, and so for no reason you have to put on the record whatsoever, you can get them kicked off. For cause challenges, you got to describe to the judge why you want them kicked off, and have a basis of showing that they have some kind of bias or preconceived ideas. Yeah, the other thing, like you're saying, Rocket Rider, is that all these folks are drunk, and Karen Reed, she's the only one that's going to be charged with drunk driving. And oh, by the way, she's driving with a cop. Linda Katz, how many times can an attorney file a motion or accuse a judge? Well, I mean, unless the judge orders you not to file any more motions challenging them, but every day there's new issues that come up. So I don't think a judge can order you not to represent your client that way. But in Massachusetts, I guess anything's possible. I'm just appalled at the lack of due process up there. LESB, could it be because the court officers are union workers, can't stay late? Never seen a court of town like this. I did hear that it might be because they're hired security, or maybe it's overtime cops that the contract says they're off at 4, and that's why they have to release a jury. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but modify the contract, make them stay later. Anybody else have trouble sleeping last night? Yes, hat says freedom. I think I've wore a hat before. I think when we were in Florida last year, I wore a hat. But normally I don't wear hats. I wear them all the time, but not usually on a live stream. But I got cut up so bad on my head, shaving tonight. It looked like Chloe attacked me. Right, KCL, you're saying Melanie Little hardly slept last night over this. And I say to folks, if you think you want to be a trial lawyer, if you can sleep soundly when you got injustice going on, you shouldn't be a trial lawyer, especially not one that's in criminal law. Yeah, or else 47 pieces of glass. Yeah, that's what it looks like. All right, Danielle, you're saying you're also tired. It's terrible. Yeah, hour after hour dragging by. I figured by the time we landed in San Antonio this morning that we'd have a verdict by then, but Pippi Longstocking, yes, I do think the jurors did investigation online. I've seen it happen before. I know of prospective jurors that have done that. They want to know everything they can, especially a case where you got all these cameras and crowds around there. I think the judge stayed on the case because she wants to do everything she can to make sure Karen Reed's convicted. She's out to get her. It's very obvious. Shane Yutzi, how can you have three different people butt dial? Yep. I think the younger jury members understand those aren't butt dials. Yeah, what about the ham sandwich? You guys been thinking about the ham sandwich? KCL, you said you over 1,000 people did in Denham near the courthouse. You think there'd be thousands, not 1,000. You think there'd be thousands there over this railroad job? GMS, I'm sure as soon as they power up their phones and leaving the Karen Reed trials all over their social media. So yeah, Denham's got around 25,000 people. Norfolk County, where the jurors were selected from, that's around 725,000 folks. And so every day over 30, what is it, 34, 35 days now, they're saying they've never heard anything about this case when they walk out of the courtroom. That's just not credible. Yeah, I don't sleep on planes. Rarely ever. Yeah, Cherry B. Can't imagine no one on that jury had not Googled to find out who hired Arca. Well, also keep in mind, folks with FBI hired Arca signs big billboards that they wear are around town. I think jurors have seen that. Joanne Fress, you're saying, I hope the jury knows how to fill out the questionnaires, get the charges straight and separate. I would hope so, but my gosh, for them to botch it that first go round, to let that former cop railroad him like that. Clint Adams, you're saying you heard 5,000 were there. Well, that's more like it. It didn't look like there's that many there to me. Bumblebee, no, the jury would not have been aware of the different times the defense called for mistrial with prejudice unless they're checking out online. So that is a possibility. Free to be free. Denham is 5 miles from Canton. Injustice and corruption and possible jury selection. I think it is possible. I mean, there could be folks there that know some of the prosecution witnesses and don't admit to it. There's got to be better likelihood, though, of folks that know about this case, thinks what's happened to Karen is an outrage, and they're gonna they're gonna go toe to toe with those that might want to find her guilty. Yeah, juicing representative Sergeant Burrows said you have to live under a rock not to know about this case. So, in other words, how any of these jurors, they probably all heard about the case. They just didn't have any formed opinions on it. So, if they didn't have any formed opinions on it, are they, if they're being honest, how would they not know about this case and have an opinion? Kimberly, you and your husband are exhausted waiting for this. Imagine how Karen feels. I live in this dumb state 30 minutes from Canton. You want justice. Well, people, sure, a lot of the people, I think you mean jurors by that, or watching it on the media. I think they were too. Courtney, you're saying calm down. There's a lot of evidence to go through, and the jury supposedly doesn't know about the first trial or any of the gossip online. The verdict slip also is confusing. BJ, you believe tomorrow will be the day not guilty on all counts. If they can't come back with a not guilty tomorrow, I'm going to start to wonder and have some concerns. And then if they don't come back by Wednesday, then they definitely are struggling. Oh, I'm just drinking some coconut water and some green teas. Not together, but separate. Please keep the language clean here. No profanity, cussing, or acronyms of such. Rosemary Gallagher, they need to investigate real crime and stay away from innocent people. You're so angry. We were up in Massachusetts last fall, I think it was. My first time there. It was a quick trip. I didn't get to see too much, but I'll never go back there for vacation, that's for sure. Yeah, GJ, you wouldn't live there mortgage free. No way. I would not live there. It's beautiful. Like I say, it's got rich history. Winters aren't too bad. Karen, what do you think the judge is trying to wear out Karen and her defense team and should rather have a hung jury than not guilty? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If she can make her face another retrial that instead of an acquittal, that is definitely a goal. Aki Ninja Gal, you're saying you have faith in this jury. They were attentive and present at the entire trial. We know there's one guy that didn't take any notes. Yes, Louise, we're talking. We think the courts are closed on Thursday. That's a federal holiday. So I'm pretty much guaranteeing that we're not going to have court then. And we're probably not going to have court Friday because nothing like using a Thursday holiday to take off Friday and give everybody a 4-day weekend, which is a real insult to justice. Nobody should wait until the following Monday for deliberations. They need to keep the jury there longer, make sure they they get a decision that's not drug out by these part-time hours during the day. Paul Plorty, you're saying this might take till Wednesday with the jury instructions that are confusing. Yeah, but they should get it by Wednesday. If they don't come back by end of the day Wednesday with a verdict. Or Anita Sussman, I grew up in Massachusetts, not surprised at the corruption there. She'll see, yeah, the jury members didn't have the option to ask witnesses questions, but if they do have questions about jury instructions, they absolutely should come back to the judge, make sure they do the right thing. Thanks, Food is Love, for your support tonight. Appreciate you. I didn't get it. I didn't see if you'd put in any comments about your jury experience. Leslie, you're saying it took 2 full days to deliberate the Michelle Traconis trial, and that lasted almost a month. Yes, this foreperson didn't take any notes. It's a concern of mine, but it's not a fatal concern. James Bond. Yeah, I don't understand. You're saying you don't see how you don't take notes in this trial for the amount of information, keep track of the massive amounts. Yeah, I would think that as well. But if you made your decision early and the government's not proving their case, then you'd probably scale it way back. But if you never took any notes at all from the beginning, it's like, how serious are you taking your job? Is what I'd wonder. But yeah, other people like MSM liars, you're saying don't hold anything against them. You probably wouldn't either unless it was something I need to think more about. Yeah, we can have different views on that. I like it if they're taking notes because it just shows us being attentive. Now, if they're being very attentive and not taking notes, I guess that's better than some folks that were up there. I've seen it in federal court where jury member was falling asleep. So, food is love. She was not allowed to take any notes when she was on the jury here in Texas. Yeah, and see, like I know in the military, we jury members can actually ask questions. Now they're subject to objections by the defense counsel, and ultimately the judge rules on it. But I think that's a pretty cool process when the jury members can ask questions. All right, I'm gonna look for one last question. I'm gonna sign off because I need to get to bed sooner tonight. It's been a lot of late nights following this case. I'm not used to staying up late like the McAlberts. All right, Aki Ninja Girl, you're saying first trial for Lori Vallow in Utah, they could ask questions, the jury could. That was refreshing. Yeah, you can sort of see what's driving their train of thought that way. Joe running dog productions. So I think there'll be long-term repercussions because of this trial. I've seen on one channel that even if the jury asks for further explanations of the verdict form, the judge could refuse. Boy, long-term effects. I don't I don't think so. I think the culture up there is so entrenched and so political. I just don't see much changing. Even if this jury comes back not guilty across the board, it's just such an incestuous political landscape there. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So thanks for your supporting of the cause, and hopefully we'll have a verdict tomorrow. And so I'll be back on tomorrow for sure if we have a verdict. So let's expect a good outcome here. Thanks for supporting Karen Reed and her family, and have a safe one. Perhaps we'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks. Have a good one.